'Twas a long time ago, longer now than it seems, in a place that perhaps you've seen in your dreams.
Do you feel it? Halloween just doesn't hit the way it used to. The streets used to feel alive. Pillowcases dragging with candy, cable horror marathons flickering on every TV, kids daring each other to knock on that one dark house at the end of the block. But now, the decorations are bigger, the costumes are more polished, the money spent is higher than ever. And yet, the magic feels like it's almost gone. Big chains like Walmart and Spirit Halloween run the whole show, turning Halloween into something closer to a flashy sale. So what changed? Why does Halloween in the 2020s feel so different compared to the 2010s, the 90s, or even the 80s? It didn't start this way. Halloween once felt very different. It grew from Celtic bonfires meant to ward off winter spirits, and it brought whole communities together through shared superstitions. People went door to door in simple disguises, trading jokes or riddles for small cakes, and the mystery of the night connected strangers under the glow of the harvest moon. It was eerie, personal, and deeply human, where fear wasn't about money, but about creating bonds. The shared chills of a community have thinned out, replaced by people doom-scrolling alone on their phones or chasing thrills sold by sponsors. Halloween had a grip on us when we were kids. We would run from one house to another in the chilly October air, our costumes flapping as our hearts raced with every doorbell we rang. Neighbors greeted us with smiles and bowls filled to the brim with chocolates and gummies, and the streets were alive with energy as ghosts, witches, and superheroes all mixed together under the glow of porch lights. That was the ritual, and it all came from centuries ago, from the old Celtic Samhain festivals where bonfires were lit to chase away spirits. And it later grew into American trick-or-treating in the 1920s, when waves of Irish immigrants brought their traditions across the ocean. Adulthood changed all of that because the thrill faded. In 2023, 3/4 of Americans noticed fewer trick-or-treaters, and trick-or-treaters were only about 28% nationwide, which was a huge drop from the 70% highs seen in the 2000s.
There's no trick-or-treaters. My husband and I got so much candy.
I haven't lived in this house long enough, so we don't know if anyone's coming tonight.
I just bought a lot in case.
A bracelet, I thought they were gonna be super happy.
Have all this candy.
Why are no kids showing up to my house?
One came trick-or-treating and I have all this candy.
I have no trick-or-treaters.
No one came.
So why the sudden drop? Why are kids not going out, trick-or-treating anymore? To understand the decline, we need to rewind the tape to the 1970s. The 1970s fueled panic with urban legends about razor blades in apples and poisoned pixie sticks. And there was even a real tragedy in 1974 when Timothy O'Brien poisoned his son's candy for insurance money, which only made the fears spread further. After World War II, the suburbs grew fast, and families who had more money than before stopped using homemade rags for costumes and began buying store versions instead. Companies like Ben Cooper Incorporated made licensed superhero outfits, and Halloween became tied to pop culture in a way that made the old magic feel watered down. Retailers jumped in next. By the 1950s, department stores like Sears were selling decorations such as paper bats and plastic pumpkins, and folklore slowly turned into inventory. Movies and television pushed it further, and when Disney followed up with Halloween TV specials, paired with the boom of Universal's classic monsters, this created waves of merchandise. Families would gather around black and white televisions, holding their breath as Boris Karloff's Frankenstein stumbled across the screen in 1931, bringing Mary Shelley's Gothic story of hubris and the unnatural to life. Communities filled drive-ins and shared their gasps while watching Universal's monster movies. Suspense used to build slowly, and Hitchcock's Psycho in 1960 terrified audiences with psychological tension. But horror changed. By the 1970s, slashers took over, and John Carpenter's Halloween in 1978 introduced Michael Myers, a silent figure born from suburban fears. The 1980s only pushed it further as the Friday the 13th series, where shock replaced suspense. Audiences kept demanding more, and by the 2000s, torture horror dominated. Saw in 2004 trapped victims in gruesome games, and Hostel in 2005 tortured tourists for thrills. Heavy horror watchers became desensitized to fear in real life. Then the internet brought its own monsters. In the late 2000s, creepypasta stories began to spread, and Slender Man, a faceless figure created in 2009, went viral as a digital urban legend. Stories like the Russian sleep experiment and Jeff the Killer moved across Reddit and 4chan, and they reflected modern fears like loneliness and constant surveillance. By 2025, analog horror was popular, with series like The Backrooms using old VHS styles to deliver short and shareable frights. Theaters had once been places where people screamed together, and since 1991, Universal Studios even hosted Halloween horror nights that drew big crowds for shared thrills. Netflix's binge model, starting in 2013, encouraged people to watch whole seasons alone, and shows like Stranger Things made solo marathons normal. Fast forward to 2020, then indoor and online worlds began to take Halloween's place. The pandemic sped it up with virtual costume contests, haunted houses over Zoom, and horror marathons streamed from living rooms. By 2024, apps even offered digital trick-or-treating where avatars collected virtual candy. Halloween did not disappear, and it simply reshaped itself to survive because fear and change kept pushing it in new directions. Halloween created its own kind of magic back then, and it thrived on its very limits. But screens broke that spell. You've seen it, the Take One Bowl. It used to mean the family wasn't home. Now it's become the norm, even when people are inside. A quiet swap. Instead of opening the door, meeting neighbors face to face, and feeling the magic of Halloween night, we outsource it to a plastic pumpkin on the porch. It's not just about candy. It's about how Halloween itself has changed. Because the truth is, Halloween doesn't wait until October anymore. Spirit Halloween stores pop up in July. Candy aisles fill in the middle of summer. Disney runs halfway to Halloween events in May. Target and Home Depot roll out skeletons and pumpkins before summer even ends. People have even named it Summerween, a second unofficial season that shows just how far Halloween has crept into the calendar. What used to be one magical spooky night has stretched into months of early marketing. And when something is always available, it loses some of its power. Halloween used to be rare. We waited all year for it. Now it arrives before the leaves even change. But back in the 80s and 90s, it was horror movies themselves that signaled the start of the Halloween season. Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees. They weren't just on the screen, they haunted the season itself. Renting a VHS or catching a late-night marathon on TV felt like a ritual. It was an event. By the 2010s, the tradition lived on. AMC's Fear Fest ran wall-to-wall slashers, Netflix dropped Halloween specials, and nostalgic rewatches of Hocus Pocus or The Nightmare Before Christmas kept the season buzzing. Every October had a horror high you could feel. But now, streaming made horror permanent. Scary movies are always there, any day, any season, any mood. And when you can watch Halloween in April or Scream in June, October doesn't feel like the one time the monsters come out to play. Horror is always available, 24/7. You can binge The Conjuring in July or watch Hereditary over breakfast. And when you can have it anytime, October doesn't feel like the only time. Halloween lost its cinematic heartbeat. Spooky season no longer had an edge because horror was available all year long. We still have the classics, but they don't feel like events anymore. They feel like background noise. And nothing kills the magic faster than making horror casual. In the 80s and 90s, Halloween lived in the real world. You knocked on doors. You braved haunted houses. You paraded through school gyms in homemade costumes. The night was tangible. By the 2010s, social media crept in. Halloween meant uploading group photos, showing off your costume on Facebook or Instagram. The night was still alive, but it was starting to get filtered. Now, Halloween exists on screens more than on streets. TikTok trends, Instagram hauls, viral costumes that rack up likes before the night even begins. The algorithm decides what's scary, not us anymore. The holiday didn't disappear. It just got an influencer. And nothing spookier than watching Halloween turn into a brand deal. Halloween has never been bigger. In 2024 alone, Americans dropped almost $12 billion on it. Every yard has 10-foot skeletons, animatronics scream from front lawns, and spirit Halloween stores rise like seasonal mushrooms. And yet, something feels hollow. The mystery drained out. The shadows replaced with LED floodlights. The danger swapped for branded candy bags. Halloween got louder, flashier, and richer. But sometimes it feels less like a night of magic and more like a showroom with fog machines. Halloween hasn't disappeared. In fact, in some ways, it's bigger than ever. The decorations are brighter, the costumes more elaborate, the money spent higher than ever before. But it feels different because the world feels different. Childhood freedom is gone. Shared rituals are fading. The streets have been traded for screens. Algorithms made sure the creepy was always available. What we wanted was that sense of rarity again. And in the end, the originality almost vanished. The authenticity has been replaced with a quick buck. Maybe Halloween didn't lose its magic. Maybe we did. And maybe that's the scariest part about Halloween now. Let me know in the comments. Do you feel the difference, or does Halloween night still feel magical for you? I want to hear your Halloween story. If you liked this Halloween breakdown, you might also like my video on Disney's Halloween movies, so go check it out. Thanks for watching.